The war began without warning. Ships appeared in the sky like burning stars. The ground shook as giant machines landed on the soil. Villages burned, and cities fell silent. People ran, children cried, and soldiers fought with broken weapons. It was not a war anyone had chosen. It was a war forced upon them, and no one was ready for it. In the middle of the chaos stood Daniel, a soldier who had already lost too much. His eyes were tired but sharp, his body scarred from old battles. He had promised never to fight again, but fate had other plans. The invasion pushed him back into war. This time, the enemy was not only human. It was something greater, something. Born from the stars, Daniel's unit was ordered to defend the desert outpost near the old pyramids. The air was hot and heavy, filled with smoke and dust. Soldiers prepared their weapons, their faces covered by masks of fear. The sky above them roared as alien warships blocked the sun. Their commander shouted orders, but Daniel already knew what was coming. The galaxy was tearing itself apart, and they were caught in the center of it. The first wave of attack shook the ground. Alien troops landed in silver pods, their armor glowing with strange blue light. Their rifles hummed with deadly power. Daniel raised his weapon and fired, and so did the men around him. The desert became fire, blood, and screams. Soldiers fell, both human and alien, until the sand itself turned red. The outpost trembled, but Daniel fought harder. He would not fall, not again. He had already lost his home. He would not lose this. Place 2. In the middle of battle, Daniel saw something strange. Among the alien soldiers, there was one figure who did not fight. She was bound in chains, her body glowing with violet skin, her long silver hair shining in the firelight. Her eyes, bright and sharp, searched the battlefield with both sadness and fury. She was not like the others, she was something else. Daniel felt it the moment he saw her. The alien girl fell to her knees as soldiers pulled her forward. She wore an elegant suit of armor, but it was cracked and broken. The chains cut into her wrists, yet her posture was proud. Even in defeat, she carried herself like royalty. Daniel realized the truth before anyone said it. She was not their enemy. She was a prisoner. She was the alien princess who had been exiled by her own kind. The enemy soldiers forced her toward the pyramid, as if she were nothing more than a trophy. Daniel's heart pounded. He had been told to kill any alien he found. He had been told they were monsters, unworthy of mercy. But looking at her, he could not believe it. Her eyes burned not with hatred, but with sorrow. She was a prisoner of fate, just as he was. And something inside him whispered that saving her would change everything. Explosions ripped through the sand. Daniel's squad was falling apart. He had a choice, stay and die, or run and live. But then he saw the alien princess stumble. The chains pulled her down. Her captors struck her, forcing her back on her feet. That moment burned into Daniel's soul. He knew he could not let her die here. He knew his war was no longer about orders, but about choice. With a roar, Daniel broke formation. He dashed across the battlefield, bullets and lasers flying past him. His comrades shouted, but he did not hear them. His only focus was the girl. Soldiers turned their weapons on him, but Daniel moved faster. He tackled one to the ground, grabbed another by the throat, and slammed his rifle into the face of a third. His body moved like fire, burning with purpose. Nothing could stop him. Now he reached the alien princess. She stared at him with wide eyes, shocked but silent. Daniel cut the chains with his combat knife. Her wrists bled, but she stood tall. For the first time, she whispered in a language he almost understood. Her voice was soft, yet powerful. She was thanking him. Daniel did not know why, but he felt as if destiny itself had bound them together. The battlefield raged on, but in that moment, something greater was born. A human soldier and an alien princess, standing together against a galaxy that wanted them dead. Daniel knew this was only the beginning. The war had just begun, and their lives would never be the same. The desert was still burning when Daniel pulled the princess to her feet. Around them, gunfire tore through the air, and explosions rattled the ground. Soldiers on both sides stared in shock. No one could understand why a human soldier had just freed an alien prisoner. But Daniel was not thinking about orders anymore. His only thought was survival. His only choice was to protect her. The alien princess stumbled as the chains fell away. Her violet skin shimmered under the sun, and her silver hair clung to her face, wet with sweat and dust. Her eyes locked on his, and for a moment, the war around them felt distant. She spoke in her language, soft and broken, but Daniel caught a word. He did not know how, but he understood it. She had said freedom. That word was enough for him. The enemy soldiers roared in anger. One raised his rifle, aiming at the princess. Daniel moved without thinking. He pushed her down and fired. The soldier fell, blue sparks erupting from his armor. More came rushing forward, shouting in their strange tongue. Daniel grabbed the princess's hand. "Move," he shouted. She did not understand his words, but she followed him. Together they ran into the chaos. Two enemies bound by something greater than war. They reached the broken walls of the outpost. Smoke covered the sky, and the ground was littered with bodies. Daniel pulled her behind a collapsed turret. His heart pounded, sweat stung his eyes, but his grip on his rifle stayed firm. He looked at her again, trying to understand. She was not like the others. She carried herself with pride, even in chains. Her presence felt powerful, almost royal. Daniel realized she was more than just a prisoner. She was someone the galaxy feared. The princess touched his chest and spoke again, her words flowing like music. Daniel shook his head. He could not understand her language, but her tone was clear. She was telling him to run, to leave her. She wanted him safe. But Daniel laughed bitterly. "Too late for that," he whispered. He was already marked a traitor for saving her. There was no going back now. Their fates were tied. More explosions shook the sand. Daniel peeked over the wall and saw human reinforcements arriving. Tanks rolled across the desert, their cannons blazing. Dropships descended from the clouds, releasing squads of soldiers in black armor. For a moment, Daniel thought they were saved. But then his blood ran cold. The reinforcements were not here. For him, their guns turned toward him and the princess. The order was clear. Kill them both. Daniel's own people raised their rifles. Their voices shouted across the battlefield. "Soldier, step away from the alien. Drop your weapon." Daniel's grip tightened instead. His jaw clenched. He looked at the princess, who now stared in shock, her glowing eyes wide with fear. She had thought his people would protect her. But now she saw the truth. The humans wanted her dead as much as her own kind did. The soldiers advanced slowly, their weapons steady. Daniel felt the weight of choice pressing on his chest. He could surrender and be executed, or he could fight against everything he had once served. His entire life had been built on loyalty to his people. But now, that loyalty demanded the blood of an innocent girl. He glanced at her once more. In her eyes, he saw not only fear, but also trust. She was placing her life in his hands. Daniel raised his rifle. His voice cut through the smoke. "You'll have to go through me first." The soldiers froze, stunned at his defiance. Their commander barked an order, and the first shot rang. "Out!" Daniel fired back, dragging the princess behind cover. Bullets tore through the sand. Grenades shook the ground, and the world became thunder. But Daniel refused to yield. He had chosen his path, and there was no return. The princess clung to him as the battle raged. For the first time, she spoke words in his own tongue. Her voice was accented but clear. "Why, save me?" she asked. Daniel met her gaze, his face grim. "Because I don't kill the innocent," he said. That answer made her eyes soften. For the first time since he saw her, she smiled faintly. Even in fire and blood, that smile lit something inside him. A blast shook the ruins, and the wall collapsed above them. Dust and stone rained down. Daniel pulled her away just in time. He fired until his rifle clicked empty. His breath came in ragged gasps, and pain burned in his side where a bullet grazed him. Still, he did not let go of her hand. He could not. Around them, human soldiers closed in, their boots crushing the sand. The circle grew tighter. Escape seemed impossible. The princess whispered something he could not understand, but her tone was calm. She pressed her hand against his wound, and suddenly a warm light glowed from her skin. Daniel gasped as the pain lessened. Her touch was not only gentle, it was healing. In that moment, he understood she was far more than royalty. She was something rare, something powerful, something the galaxy would kill to control. And now, she was standing beside him. Daniel realized their fight was only beginning. They were hunted by both her people and his. The galaxy had decided their fate. But Daniel was not a man who obeyed fate. He was a man who made his own. He gripped his weapon tighter, ready for whatever came next. The war would not end today, but a new battle had just begun, and he was no longer fighting alone. The desert burned under the weight of war. Daniel and the alien princess crouched behind the ruins, trapped between enemies. Human soldiers moved in from one side, while alien forces closed from the other. Both sides wanted the same thing, her death. Daniel wiped blood from his face and tightened his grip on his weapon. He had chosen his path, and there was no turning back. The princess pressed her hand to his shoulder, her silver hair glowing in the dusty air. Her eyes burned with courage, but also with fear. "They will not stop," she whispered in broken human tongue. Daniel gave a bitter smile. "Neither will I." His words carried no doubt. He had made his decision. He would not let the galaxy decide her fate. He would fight, even if it meant his death. A grenade exploded nearby, shaking the ground. Daniel shielded her, the blast pushing them against the sand. His ears rang, but he pushed himself up, firing back. He dropped 2 human soldiers before they could reach them. The princess knelt beside him, chanting softly in her alien language. Her hands glowed again, sealing the wound on his arm. Pain vanished, replaced by fire in his blood. Daniel realized her power was more than healing, it was life itself. The human commander shouted through a speaker, "Soldier, you are charged with treason. Step away from the alien, and you may live." The voice was cold, without mercy. Daniel shouted back, his voice raw, "She's no enemy, you're blind." The soldiers ignored him. They raised their rifles, their helmets hiding any trace of humanity. The order was clear. He and the princess would die here before the first bullet was fired. The sky ripped open with a roar. Alien warships descended, their shadows darkening the desert. Beams of light tore through the battlefield, striking humans and aliens alike. The ground trembled as massive machines landed, shaped like beasts of metal. Soldiers scattered screaming. The battle turned into chaos again, but Daniel saw the truth. These ships were not rescuers. They were hunters. They had come for her. The princess trembled. Her violet skin glowed faintly, reacting to the presence of the ships. Daniel noticed her expression change from fear to sorrow. "My people," she said softly. Daniel's jaw tightened. If these were her people, then why were they attacking her? He looked at her, searching for an answer. She met his gaze with quiet pain. "Exiled," she whispered. "They want me gone, forever." Daniel understood. She was not just an exile. She was a threat to them. Whatever power she carried, her people feared it. And now they would destroy her before it could rise again. Daniel clenched his fists. "Then we run," he said. She looked at him in surprise. "Run?" He nodded firmly. If both sides want us dead, then we don't stay, we live." Her lips parted, and for the first time she believed him. Together, they broke from cover. Daniel led her through the smoke, dodging gunfire, cutting through enemy lines. His body moved with pure instinct, protecting her with every step. They ran toward the jagged cliffs beyond the desert. Soldiers chased them, shouting, firing. But Daniel was faster. He knew how to move, how to hide, how to fight. Every scar on his body had taught him survival, and now that knowledge kept them alive. At the edge of the battlefield, they reached the canyon. Daniel pushed her ahead, sliding down into the shadows of the rocks. The thunder of battle echoed above, but here, for a moment, there was silence. The princess sank to her knees, breathing hard. Daniel leaned against the wall, his chest heaving. His rifle was nearly empty. His strength was failing. But when he looked at her, he found the will to keep going. She was alive. That was enough. The princess spoke again, her voice calm but heavy. "You defy your own people. You fight against mine. Why?" Daniel thought of his past. Of all the times he had been ordered to kill without question. Of the innocents lost. Because he obeyed. His voice was rough but steady. "Because I won't let them decide who deserves to live. Not anymore." She stared at him, her eyes glowing softly in the shadows. Slowly she nodded. For the first time, trust grew between them. The night fell over the canyon, stars burning above. Fires from the battle still lit the horizon. Daniel sat with his rifle, watching the darkness. The princess sat close, silent but thoughtful. For hours, they listened to the distant thunder of war. At last she spoke, her voice soft. "My name is Soraya." Daniel turned to her. The word carried power, like the sound of something ancient. He repeated it quietly. "Soraya." She smiled faintly. In that moment, the bond between them deepened, but the galaxy would not leave them in peace. Drones buzzed through the night. Sky searching the cliffs. Voices echoed in the canyon, hunting them. Daniel rose, his hand tightening on his weapon. Soraya stood beside him, her silver hair glowing in the moonlight. Together, they faced the darkness. Alone, they were doomed. But together, they had a chance. For the first time, Daniel felt not like a soldier, but like something greater. He felt like a man standing against the galaxy itself. The hunt had begun. And Daniel knew, deep in his soul, that this was no longer just about survival. It was about destiny. The night was not silent for long. The canyon echoed with the hum of alien drones, their red eyes scanning the rocks. Daniel crouched low, pulling Soraya close against the stone wall. His rifle was ready, but nearly empty. Every shadow felt alive. Every sound threatened death. Soraya's hand trembled in his grip, though her face stayed calm. She whispered one word in her tongue, and Daniel knew its meaning. "Hunters, above." The war still raged, but here the danger was different. It was precise. The drones moved slowly, like wolves searching for prey. Daniel held his breath, waiting for them to pass. But one light swept over their hiding spot. Soraya's silver hair glowed faintly in the beam. The drone paused. Its engines whined. Then it fired. The canyon erupted with sparks. Daniel pulled Soraya down as energy bolts scorched the rocks. He rolled, aimed, and shot once. The drone exploded, its pieces raining fire across the canyon. But the sound had given them away. More drones swarmed, buzzing like angry wasps. Daniel grabbed Soraya's hand. "Move!" he shouted. She understood without words. Together, they ran deeper into the canyon, the machines hunting them without pause. The cliffs narrowed until they reached a cave hidden in shadow. Daniel pushed Soraya inside and turned, firing at the drones. His bullets sparked uselessly against their armor. He cursed it under his breath. The rifle clicked empty. He raised his combat knife as the nearest drone dived. But before it struck, Saraya lifted her hand. A flash of violet light burst from her palm, striking the machine. The drone shattered, crashing into the canyon floor. Her power lit the cave. Like fire, Daniel stared at her in shock. He had seen her heal. But this was different. This was destruction. Her eyes glowed bright, her body trembling as if the energy drained her life. She stumbled, and Daniel caught her. "You saved me," he said. Her voice shook, but she answered in broken human words. Save us." Then her eyes closed. For a moment, her strength nearly gone, Daniel carried her deeper into the cave. The walls were damp and cold, lined with crystals that glowed faintly in the dark. He set her down gently, brushing dust from her face. She opened her eyes again, weak but still proud. "Now." "You see," she whispered. Daniel nodded. He understood. This power was the reason she had been exiled. She was more than a princess. She was a threat to every throne in the galaxy. As Saraya rested, Daniel listened to the voices echoing outside. Human soldiers and alien troops both searched the canyon. He heard their words, sharp and merciless. "Kill the traitor. Kill the exile. Bring their bodies." Daniel's jaw tightened. The galaxy had chosen death for them, but he would not obey. Not now. He leaned against the cave wall, his eyes scanning the dark. "We'll find a way," he whispered. His voice was steady. Though the odds were not, Saraya studied him, her glowing eyes soft. "You fight." "Against your own," she said. Daniel met her gaze. "I fight for what's right." She tilted her head, as if weighing his soul. Then she reached out, placing her hand gently on his cheek. The warmth of her touch spread through him, stronger than any wound or fear. For the first time since the war began, Daniel felt something rare. Hope. Hours passed. The hunters above moved farther away. The cave grew silent, except for the sound of dripping water. Daniel sat close to Saraya, his rifle across his knees, his body tired but ready. She leaned against him, her breath steady. For a moment, they were not soldier and exile. They were two souls bound by fate, finding comfort in the shadows. The galaxy had marked them for death, but here together, they found life. At dawn, the silence shattered. Explosions shook the canyon. The cave walls cracked as blasts tore through the cliffs. Dust rained down as Daniel grabbed Saraya. "They found us," he shouted. She struggled to stand, her body weak but her spirit strong. They ran through the tunnels as fire followed, chasing them like a storm. Rocks collapsed behind them, sealing. The cave. The only way forward was deeper into the earth. The tunnels twisted like veins beneath the desert. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the stone, ancient and alien. Saraya touched the walls with trembling fingers. "Old ones," she whispered, "before my people." Her voice carried awe, as if she had discovered something sacred. Daniel glanced at the markings, confused. "What is this place?" She looked at him, her eyes wide with wonder. "A place of truth," she said softly. Her voice shook with something more than fear. It was destiny. They followed the glowing path until the tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber. The ceiling shimmered with crystals, casting light across giant stone pillars. At the center stood an ancient throne carved from black rock, untouched by time. Saraya froze, her breath catching. Daniel looked at her, uncertain. "What is it?" She stepped forward slowly, her voice trembling. "It is where my bloodline began." Her hand touched the stone, and where it must rise again. Daniel stared at her, the truth dawning. She was not just a princess. She was the key to something greater, something the galaxy feared and hunted. The exile was not meant to stay hidden. She was meant to return. And now, with him at her side, she would. The underground chamber glowed with the light of the crystals. Daniel stood in silence as Saraya placed her hand on the ancient throne. Her silver hair shimmered in the glow, her violet skin alive with energy. The air vibrated as if the throne itself recognized her touch. Daniel felt the hairs on his arms rise. Something powerful lived here, something older than both human and alien history. It was not just a throne. It was a symbol of power that had once ruled the stars. Saraya's voice trembled. This place. It was lost. My people buried it. They feared what it meant. But I knew the stories. She turned to Daniel, her glowing eyes filled with awe and sorrow. This is the throne of the first empress, my ancestor. Her blood runs in me. Daniel felt the weight of her words. She was not just an exile. She was heir to an empire that had shaped the galaxy long before humans reached the stars. Before Daniel could answer, the ground shook. Explosions echoed above. Dust rained from the ceiling, and voices shouted in the tunnels. Soldiers were coming. Both human and alien troops had tracked them here. Their boots pounded closer, rifles ready, hungry for blood. Daniel raised his weapon, his jaw tight. "They're not giving us peace," he muttered. Saraya stepped away from the throne, her face set with fire. "Then we give them truth." The chamber erupted as soldiers stormed inside, human rifles and alien cannons aimed at them. The commander of the human forces stepped forward, his voice cold. "Daniel, step aside. She is the exile. She must die. You know this." Daniel did not move. His eyes burned as he shouted back. "She's not your enemy." But the soldiers did not care. To them, orders mattered more than truth. Daniel fired first. Bullets echoed in the cavern, striking helmets and armor. Alien weapons answered with beams of blue fire. Chaos filled the chamber, crystal light flashing across the stone. Daniel moved like a storm, cutting through soldiers, his knife flashing when his rifle emptied. Every strike was desperate, every breath heavy. Yet he did not fall. He fought for something greater than himself. He fought for her. Saraya raised her hands. Her body glowed with violet energy, pulsing like fire through her veins. She cried out, and the crystals above blazed with light. A wave of power burst from her, throwing soldiers to the ground. Weapons shattered, armor cracked, and the chamber shook as if alive. Soldiers screamed in terror, backing away. They had come to kill her, but now they saw why she had been exiled. Her power was beyond their control. Daniel shielded his eyes from the brilliance. When the light dimmed, he saw her standing tall before the throne, her chains gone, her face fierce. She looked like a queen risen from the ashes. Her voice thundered through the cavern, speaking words in her language, words that even Daniel almost understood. She was claiming her birthright, her right to exist, her right to rule. The soldiers froze, their courage breaking. Some fled into the tunnels, others dropped their weapons and bowed, but not all yielded. The human commander raised his rifle, fury in his eyes. "No, she dies here." He aimed at Saraya. Daniel moved without hesitation. The shot rang out, striking him in the shoulder. Pain burned through his body, but he did not stop. He tackled the commander to the ground, their weapons clattering away. Fists flew, blood spilled, and Daniel roared with every strike. This was not just a fight for survival. It was a fight for destiny. Saraya stepped forward, her energy burning again. She raised her hand, and the commander froze as if gripped by invisible chains. He gasped, his weapon ripped from his hands by unseen force. Her eyes glowed brighter, filled with both anger and sorrow. For a moment, Daniel thought she would kill him. But instead, she lowered her hand. The commander collapsed, alive but broken. Her voice was firm. No more death. Daniel staggered back to her side, his wound bleeding, his breath ragged. She touched him again, her healing light closing the gash. "You saved me," she whispered. He shook his head. "No, you saved us both." For a heartbeat, they stood in silence, two souls bound not by war, but by trust. Around them, the chamber glowed, the throne waiting, the galaxy trembling with what came next. Above, the rumble of engines shook the earth. Daniel looked up, his jaw tightening. "They're bringing more," he said. Saraya nodded. "They will never stop. Humans, my people, all of them. They fear me. They fear us." Daniel gripped his weapon tighter. "Then let them come. We'll show them what we are." She turned to him, her eyes shining with something deeper than hope. "Together?" He smiled faintly despite the blood on his lips. "Together." As the soldiers regrouped outside the cavern, Daniel and Saraya stood at the center of the throne chamber. She was no longer just an exile. She was the rightful heir, and he was the soldier who had chosen to protect her. The galaxy had marked them for execution, but destiny had chosen something else. Daniel felt it in his bones. The real war had not even begun. But when it came, they would face it side by side. The chamber shook as more ships landed above the canyon. Engines roared, shaking the ground, and dust rained from the ceiling. Daniel stood beside Saraya, his rifle gripped tight though nearly empty. The throne glowed behind her, casting violet light across the stone walls. Outside, human and alien soldiers gathered together, no longer fighting each other. They had united for one purpose: to kill them both. Saraya lifted her chin, her silver hair flowing in the light. "They will come. With fire," she said softly. Daniel nodded, his jaw set. "Then we'll answer with steel." His voice was steady, though his body trembled from exhaustion. He had been a soldier all his life, but never had a battle felt so heavy. This was not just war, it was history. The galaxy would remember this moment, whether as their execution or their beginning. The first blast tore through the entrance. Soldiers stormed the cavern, human rifles and alien cannons aimed as one. Their shouts echoed in the stone. "Kill the exile! Kill the traitor!" Daniel raised his weapon, firing until it clicked dry. He dropped it, grabbed his knife, and charged forward. His roar filled the chamber, his blade flashing, his fist striking. Every movement was fueled not by orders, but by choice. He was done being a pawn. He was fighting for Saraya. Saraya stepped onto the throne platform. The crystals above pulsed in response, their light flooding the chamber. She spread her hands, her eyes glowing brighter than fire. Energy erupted from her body, forming a shield that stopped the enemy's bullets in midair. They froze in the light, powerless before her. For a moment, even Daniel stopped, staring in awe. She was no longer just a princess. She was the Empress reborn. The soldiers hesitated, fear spreading through their ranks. Some lowered their weapons. Others shouted in anger, trying to fight back. But Saraya's voice cut through the chaos, steady and strong. She spoke in her tongue, then in broken human words. "No more chains, no more exile. I am Saraya, rightful heir. And I will not bow." Her words echoed like thunder. The chamber itself seemed to breathe with her power. The commanders of both armies pushed forward, screaming orders. Rockets fired, cannons blazed. The cavern erupted into fire. Daniel grabbed the fallen rifle and fought beside her, covering her. As she unleashed her strength, energy bolts struck enemies down, shattering armor, burning weapons into dust. Daniel's blade found gaps in helmets. His bullets dropped soldiers one by one. Together they moved as one, human and alien, defying the will of the galaxy itself, but the numbers were endless. For every soldier that fell, more poured into the cavern. Daniel's body weakened, his wounds deepening. Blood ran down his side, his breaths short and ragged. Yet he stood, refusing to fall. Saraya turned, her eyes filled with sorrow as she saw his pain. "Daniel, you cannot fight forever." He smiled faintly through the blood. "Then I'll fight until the last second." Her heart ached, but she placed her hand on his chest. The throne behind her flared with light, brighter than the sun. Power surged through the chamber, lifting dust and stone into the air. Daniel staggered back, shielding his eyes. Soraya's voice rang out, filled with strength and sorrow. If they want an ending, then I will give them truth. The soldiers froze as the cavern shook. Soraya's power exploded outward, a wave of violet energy sweeping through the chamber. Weapons shattered, engines failed, and soldiers were thrown back as if struck by a storm. The earth above cracked, light bursting from the canyon like dawn. For a moment, the galaxy itself seemed to pause. Daniel dropped to his knees, staring at her, his heart caught between fear and awe. When the light faded, silence filled the chamber. The soldiers lay scattered, weapons broken, courage gone. None dared rise. Soraya stood tall upon the throne, her body glowing, her presence undeniable. She had claimed her place, not as an exile, not as a prisoner, but as the empress of a new age. Her voice was soft, but it carried through every corner. No more killing, no more chains. From this day I rise, not to destroy, but to lead. Daniel looked up at her, his body trembling with pain but his heart steady. In her eyes he saw not just power, but compassion. She reached down, her hand glowing with warmth, pulling him back to his feet. Together, she said, her voice certain. Daniel clasped her hand, his grip strong despite his wounds. Together, he answered. The soldiers who remained dropped to their knees, some in fear, some in awe, but all in surrender. The galaxy had tried to kill them both. Instead, it had given birth to something greater. An empress reborn, and the soldier who defied fate to stand by her side. Their story would be told for generations. A story not of exile, but of return. Not of execution, but of destiny. Daniel and Soraya stepped forward, hand in hand, as the dawn broke over the desert above. The galaxy had written their deaths, but they had chosen life. And in that choice, they had changed everything.